Charlie Kirk, the impact that he has had on so many people, young people in particular, is incalculable. Turning Point USA continues. The mission, Erica, now has taken the reins, and that mission continues. And it's just so sad, tragic, what happened that day. And what's even more sad is people attacking either the organization or Erica Kirk. And it's not something that I feel that anybody should be paying attention to myself, and therefore I ignore it, but I'm sure it's not fun for them to have to live through all of that, you know, people that have whatever agenda that they have. But there are a couple of people that shaped Charlie Kirk and his love of God, his faith, his belief system. Charlie had a quest for knowledge, a thirst that he had for knowledge, and especially when it comes to the spiritual issues in life. He had people like Pastor Rob McCoy, who married both Charlie and Erica, also was very good friends with Frank Turek. And Frank Turek was basically, he teaches apologetics, which is the defense of Christianity using logic and scripture combined. And if you haven't read anything, David Limbaugh, my friend of many years, Rush's brother, has written many books on it himself. Frank Turek has also. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. And anyway, was a mentor, friend to Charlie Kirk. He was about 25 feet away from him when he was assassinated. And today, he's going back to basically the scene of the crime. He's going back to Utah Valley University and addressing the kids out there. Give him a lot of credit for this. And Frank, it's great to have you back on the show. Thank you for being with us. How are you doing? How's Erica doing? How's the Turning Point family doing?
Sean, thanks for having me on. Erica, I just spoke to her yesterday, and she's plowing through. But as you just said, it's really unconscionable that people would be attacking a widow and a widow who has two young children. She's innocent, Sean, and it pains me to even have to say that. It's obvious. But, Sean, you know, as you always quote on your show, let not your heart be troubled. That's from John chapter 14.
No, my heart's troubled when people are being mean. My heart's troubled when people can't have empathy or sympathy for what other people go through. I can't stand when people try to build themselves up by knocking other people down. I don't like that either.
Well, here's the interesting part, Sean. Both the apostles and Jesus called Satan a murderer, liar, accuser, and slanderer who wants to destroy. Sean, we had a murder 6 months ago. What have we had since then? We've had lies, accusations, slander to try and destroy an innocent widow and her organization that Charlie built. If you're calling yourself a friend of Charlie, how on earth are you attacking his widow and the organization that he built? A phenomenal organization. Some of the finest people I've ever met are at Turning Point USA.
Well, what does the Bible tell us? You know, lie, what is it? Lie, steal, and destroy?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean...
It does. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, so it is...
Liar, accuser, and a slanderer.
You know, I want you to explain, because some of my more favorite moments on this radio show to do, and I don't do it probably often enough, but somebody will call in and they're an atheist, and I'll have a long discussion with them, and this is how I argue to them. And yes, I'm a Christian. Yes, I was raised Catholic, but I'm more non-denominational at this point in my life. But I believe the gospel. I believe in the Old Testament. I believe in the New Testament, and I believe that America was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. Our founders and framers referenced it often, and some of the great philosophers back in the day. And when people call this program, and I will ask them, you know, or they'll say to me, or they'll state to me that how can I believe in a God, and why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? And we've had many of these discussions over the years on this program, and this is my take on it, because to be an atheist, I argue, you have to believe that something came from nothing. And at some point, I'll get them to admit they believe that the Big Bang Theory occurred. And then I'll say, okay, well, where did all of those elements come from that collided together that somehow magically created universes within universes within universes within universes within universes? And then you get into the specific detail, everything from an ant to a caterpillar to wildlife to humanity and so on and so forth, and the water and the seas and the sun and the stars and the sky, etc., and what we know. And how did all of that just happen? And they never have a good answer for that. And this is the stuff that you and Charlie would talk about a lot, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, of course, Sean. You're absolutely right. Here's what even atheists today are admitting. Like, for example, Stephen Hawking, he's since passed away, but he said almost everyone now believes that the universe and time itself had a beginning at the Big Bang. That's what the evidence shows. Now, he tried to come up with another explanation other than God, Sean, but who else could it be? If space-time and matter had a beginning out of nothing, whatever created space-time and matter has to be outside of space-time and matter. In other words, the cause must be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful to create the universe out of nothing, personal in order to choose to create, and also intelligent to have a mind to create. Now, whenever I ask atheists or even anybody, when you think about a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, intelligent cause, who do you think of? Well, it's obviously a being like God, and when you look at the evidence that Jesus really did die and rise from the dead, then you can go back and say that the same being that walked out of the tomb 1,993 years ago next week, Sean, is the same being who created the universe out of nothing in his divine nature or by his divine nature. That's what Christians believe, and we believe that because there's evidence for this. There's evidence that God exists, and there's evidence that Jesus rose from the dead. And by the way, that's why I can go to Utah Valley University tonight, Sean, and show people the evidence that Christianity is true, and then give them hope that there's life beyond this grave by trusting in what Jesus did. Charlie did that. So Charlie right now is absent from the body but present with the Lord. The rest of us are here to continue his mission, the mission Jesus gave us, and that is to make disciples of all nations.
One Bible verse that gives me so much hope, but there are many of them, and yeah, I do quote, "Let not your heart be troubled. I go and prepare a place for you, so that where I am, ye shall also be. And in my Father's house are many mansions," and that's what he's preparing for all of us. I believe all of that. And then the Bible also says, "The eye hath not seen, nor hath the ear heard, nor has it entered into the heart of man, what God has in store for those that love the truth." And then at another point in the Bible, an almighty, all-powerful, all-living creator of the heavens and earth and everything in between, that the very hairs of our head are counted, and that God is very, very aware. I mean, we're not designed as human beings to comprehend God's majesty, are we?
Not completely. We can't, Sean. But if we want to know who God is in a personal way, we look at Jesus. So we're going to go over there, and it's at 9 p.m. Eastern. We're going to live stream it on our YouTube channel, the Cross-Examined YouTube channel, 2 words, Cross-Examined. So if people who are not near Orem, Utah, want to see this, they can. And we're going to take a lot of questions, Sean.
So what do we glean from the Bible in terms of, you talk about the life of Jesus, and Jesus gives us glimpses into what the future holds for us, that there is life beyond this body. We're mind, body, and spirit, and that our spirit will live on. And I think that gives a lot of people hope. It certainly gives me hope. And, I do believe with all my heart that people that are believers, that they will be in paradise one day. I mean, Jesus on the cross turned to one of the people to his side, and that person said, "I deserve to be here, you don't." And he said, "This day you will be with me in paradise." That's how he describes heaven. That's pretty profound.
Yes, it is, Sean. And right now, as we said, Charlie's absent from the body, present with the Lord. But one day he's going to be resurrected, and the rest of us who are in the Lord are going to be resurrected. And we're going to be with Jesus and our loved ones forever, those that have accepted what Christ has done and repented. But a lot of times I talk to atheists, and I ask them this question, Sean, or even people who are not Christians. I ask them, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? And I've had many of them say, no, Sean, because it's not a matter of the head quite often. It's often a matter of the heart. They don't want it to be true. They don't want there to be a God because they want to be God over their own lives. So they're not really on a truth quest, happiness quest. And so I always ask that question to see where they are, if they're really open to Christianity. If they are open, I'll give them some evidence. If they're not, I'll just pray and ask them to reconsider. Why wouldn't you believe something that really was true? Christianity is true. There's evidence for it.
Well, I think so, too. I mean, I actually, in many cases, have found that I feel sorry for people in the end because they just don't have the hope that we have. All right, quick break. We'll come right back. We'll continue. Charlie Kirk's pastor going back to Utah Valley University. This the first return since the assassination of Charlie to talk to students there. Anyway, we'll continue more with Frank Turek on the other side. 800-941-SEAN is a number. We'll also get your calls in as we continue across the program today, straight ahead. We continue with Pastor Frank Turek. Now, he was one of Charlie Kirk's closest friends, mentor, spiritual advisor, teaches apologetics, which is Christian apologetics, which makes the case for God both logically and biblically. He is making a return tonight. He's going to Utah Valley University, the location where Charlie was assassinated. One of the things that stood out to me, and I want to get your take on this because you're the expert, I'm not, and I'm asking just more out of curiosity how you interpret this. When Moses was on Mount Sinai and he asked God, and who appeared to him before a burning bush that didn't burn, who should I say sent me? And he said, I am. Now, I interpret that to mean that God always was, always will be, forever, and is always present. And that is something, too, that the human mind really can't fathom because we live in a world that is measured by time. And that infers to me that God is timeless. Thoughts?
Yes, he's outside of time. That's what I am means. He is the self-existent eternal one, the being that had no beginning, the being that will have no end, the being that just be, Sean. This being gives life to everything else that exists. So this being is the self-existent eternal being. What Aristotle, who didn't know everything about God, but knew enough to say there has to be an unmoved mover. There has to be a being who has always existed, who actually creates everything else that exists, and that's what we mean by God's nature. So, yes, and when Jesus said to the crowd around him in John chapter 8, before Abraham was born, I am, what he's essentially saying is, I am Yahweh, I am God. And that's why they picked up stones to stone him. That's why he was killed, Sean, because he claimed to be God, and that was blasphemy to the Jews. So he was claiming to be the great I am, the self-existent eternal one.
Well, we really appreciate it. We wish you the best of luck. Pastor Frank Turek, thank you for being with us. He's at Utah Valley University, and you may want to check out his book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist. We appreciate your time and all you did for Charlie in the course of his life, and our prayers are with the organization, with Erica, with their children, etc. Please pass on our best wishes.
God bless you, Sean. Thanks for being a beacon of light every night on Fox News and on the radio. I appreciate it, brother.
I'm trying. I'm doing my best. I'm just a mere vessel here. I'm giving it my best shot. Frank Turek, thank you.